Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Kat. Since I made the video about explaining why I'm leaving academia, going to consulting, actually people are asking me, oh, so why did you do your PhD? Right? You could have just gone to consulting right after college and now maybe I'm already, like a manager level, right? That's why I'm making this video, because I think it's a fair question asking me why I did my PhD, and I'm sure that there are thousands of you wondering if you should do a PhD or MD or JD or just a master. So I think that's a very big decision, because that means you're dedicating your next 4 to 7 years on one topic, and that really requires a lot of effort, time. That's why I think it is really important to make sure that you want to do a PhD. So today I want to lay out some of the questions that I think you should ask yourself if you're debating if you should do a PhD. So before we start, please like and subscribe my channel so I can provide more content to address your concerns about PhD, career development. So let's get started. I think before getting into PhD, you really want to ask yourself the question why you want to do a PhD. Is it because you really have this strong urge of, ask questions, wondering something, really want to answer them with your own research? Then yes, I think you definitely 100% should do a PhD. But what if you're doing a PhD because your parents want you to do a PhD because you're from a PhD family? Or because you have been working the past 2-3 years and you're sick of the working environment and you want to change, and you thought, oh, why not do a PhD? So really, before you start, ask yourself what kind of PhD you want to do, why do you want to do a PhD? I think if the answer ultimately goes back to yourself, you want to do the PhD, you really fit into the PhD program, then I think yes, you should do a PhD. Okay, so that's the first question you have to ask yourself, why you want to do a PhD. Then I think after you make sure that you want to do a PhD, remember, not anybody else, you want to do a PhD, and it is backed up by your interests of science. If it's any questions that really interest you, yes, please, continue this process. Let's say you really make sure that, doing a PhD is a good option so far, then I think what you should ask yourself is, what are your priorities? I think nowadays, pursuing a PhD degree doesn't necessarily mean that you want to do academia, right? As you can see, there are so many people maybe around you that they did a PhD, but they didn't want to continue the academic route because of all kind of different reasons. Then, they can jump into another career that requires a PhD, for example, or having a PhD really add value on their next goal. That's why, being a professor doesn't have to be your goal of doing a PhD. I think you should ask yourself what kind of job you're looking at, what kind of priorities that you're looking at. Let's say you really want to make money. Right? Like the fortune is your priority. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. A lot of people, they want to make money in their 20s and then they can retire, mid-30s. There's a famous movement nowadays called FIRE, Financial Independence, Retire Early movement. And I think that's a great movement. If you want to do that, then you definitely shouldn't consider a PhD, right? Because after you graduate PhD, you're pretty much around 30. So probably you will not retire in your mid-30s, right? So I think if the money or the fortune is your priority, then you probably should consider going to investment banking or computational science that your starting salary is 6 figures, right? So I think it's very different goals there. Let's say your goal is stability. You wanna, you don't really wanna retire early. You wanna just work, but maybe 9 to 5 stable job, and then you have pension after you retire. So if that is kind of life that you're looking after, then you probably should look for some governmental jobs. Of course, being a professor is quite stable after you get your tenure, because, you have your tenure and then you basically settle for your life, right? But getting a tenure requires many, many years of effort and, restless nights, a lot of anxiety, really trying to get funding, support your lab. So that's a lot of things that we can, talk about in another video about, how tough to get tenure as a professor. I think if you really want a stable job, then I would say it really depends on your goal. Just be cautious before going to a PhD if that is your priority. Next will be social impact. I kind of did a very, very small N number survey among my friends, among my PhD friends, and I would say social impact ranked really high on their priorities. I think they're dedicating, their 5-7 years of their life on solving maybe just one project, if, at best 2 or 3 main projects that they're working on. They really want to, dedicate their time and knowledge on helping some of the toughest questions on Earth. And those requires tenacity, resilience, hours and hours of experiments. So I think they really think they are contributing to science, they're contributing to making a history, they're contributing to a part of drug development, they're helping patients. So they really want to make a difference in this world. And I think if that's one of your top priorities, definitely doing a PhD is so great. It's so fulfilling after you make a discovery. That's definitely true. And after you get your PhD, there are so many other alternative career paths that you can pursue to make an impact. Of course, you can always stay in academia and be a professor, which also make a big impact. You can mentor students and then educate the next generation scientists. At the same time, you're making discoveries, right? So I think this is definitely the top reason. That's why I pursued my PhD, to be honest. When I was in college, I spent many nights. I didn't even go home for like big holidays. Really just immerse myself in the lab and thinking that I really can help some patients and really making some discoveries, right? If you really want to make some impact, pursuing a PhD is definitely a plus. I think other than these 2 big questions that you should ask yourself, you should also considering the life of being a PhD student. So first, financially, you definitely live a pretty frugal life because, PhD students don't get paid that well. As I said, right, you are making all these discoveries to make a difference in this world, not because to make money. Let's say now if you're already working, then you have to imagine yourself living on a wage of, let's say, half of what you're making right now, or even, less. So you have to set your expectation right. Maybe now you can go out with your girls, with your guys to have fun on the weekends multiple times, or you now basically eat out every day and then living in a luxury apartment. This probably will not happen in grad school, because you definitely want to pick a place close to the lab so you can run to the lab as soon as possible, and then you don't really have that much time enjoying your luxury apartment or the utilities in your complex because you spend most of the time in your lab. So probably you just want to live in a normal, cheaper dorm life. I have friends who also live in a relatively luxury life, but probably they either are supported by their families or they definitely don't have any savings. They basically live paycheck by paycheck, and then they don't have any student debts. Then it's fine, but I would say that, if you are really dedicated to science, to research, you probably spend so many hours in the lab that you don't care about your, actual life that much. Which leading to the next topic, that I think the work-life balance is definitely off as a graduate student. I know a mom who is a graduate student. She has to come to a lab after putting her kid to bed because she didn't really have time during, the dinner time to do work. So she has to come after, let's say 9 p.m. To the lab and then do some imaging work, do some time-consuming work basically at night. And then she has to, wake up early at like 5 a.m., prepare breakfast, and then drop her kid to school, and then come to the lab, really hectic days. But, she feels so fulfilling because she grew up so much over those years. She thought she's making an impact, and then she's also taking care of her children. And now, she's doing a postdoc and really enjoying the academic life as well. And I really hope she can have her own lab very, very soon. There are those really great examples of keeping their work-life balance, but I really don't think that's keeping the work-life balance. I think they're really managing their time very, very well. You have to be mentally prepared. All I'm trying to say is really get your expectation correct before going to the grad school. Otherwise, I've seen so many people dropping out as well because of that. Similarly, I think doing a grad school is mentally very challenging. So get yourself prepared. Knowing what you're getting into will help a lot during your grad school years. Finally, I just want to address another question. People ask me, did you know, 5 years ago before coming to the grad school, where you're gonna be in the next 5-10 years? And I was like, yes, back then I thought so. I thought I would, finish my grad school, do a postdoc, and become a professor. But now here I am, I'm going for consulting right now. I don't know what's gonna be, in the next 5 or 10 years, but I think I enjoy my current life very much. That's all I have to say. That's why if people ask you, just think about what you want to do in the next 5-10 years, I think it's just kind of nonsense, because nobody can predict your future. As long as you know what's the best decision for you at that moment, that is enough for you to make a decision to move on. I always believe that every experience counts, right? It's just like what I mentioned in my video, Why I'm Leaving Academia. You make your own decision at that moment. You decide if you should do a PhD. You decide what are your priorities. You decide that I'm getting into grad school no matter what. Even I'm a single mom, for example. I think as long as you set your expectation right, as long as you are mentally prepared, you know what you're getting into, and you are courageous, you are brave enough to make that step to advance your future, that is enough reason for you to convince yourself that you should do a PhD. So hopefully this video can encourage people who want to do a PhD to pursue their dream. Also help people who are still wondering, make sure that they should or should not do a PhD. Well, hopefully you enjoyed the video. Please comment below on any questions that you have, and I will definitely get back to you as soon as possible. And thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.